Mom remarried, and we moved in with my new stepdad and stepbrother. I met him for the first time. Ashton. The little punk greeted me with a sneer sharp enough to cut glass. "Welcome to hell," he said, as if he had rehearsed the line for dramatic effect. That very night, he tossed 2 live mice into my room. I didn't scream, didn't call anyone. I couldn't. I just watched them scurry and waited. The next day, I retaliated, slipped a rubber snake into his backpack. The look on his face when he opened it at school? Priceless. He ended up in the hospital. From that moment, it was war. Full-blown, no holds barred, trench warfare. And yet, one day, he threw up his hands in surrender. "Okay, I give up. I like you." Sore loser, that one. Mom, as always, was a force of nature, tough as nails, with a sharp tongue and elbows that could rival a heavyweight. We'd been through everything together. Basement apartments, scraping by, nights that felt like sleeping under bridges. Once, I had asked her if she regretted anything. She had smiled, tired but genuine. "You gave me life. That's enough." I had nodded, too scared to ask for more. Then, life did a full 180. My mama bear turned into a lovesick teenager overnight. She'd fallen for her boss. Apparently, he was mesmerized by her immaculate cleaning skills and was determined to make her his wife. I couldn't help but be impressed. This was real-life Manhattan romance material, only starring my middle-aged, blush-faced mom. "Should I marry him?" she asked one evening, looking at me with wide, hopeful eyes. My heart tightened. She used to call me brat. Now it was honey. Love changes people in the oddest, most beautiful ways. I gave my seal of approval. And just like that, Mom and I joined the ranks of the almost rich. My stepdad, total silver fox, narrow waist, all the charm of a romantic hero. Mom, soft, gooey, and glowing like a sunrise. "Honey," she said, "say hello to your uncle." "Uncle? Please," I muttered. I wanted to call him Daddy. "Uncle has a son," she continued. "Ashton. You must get along." I blinked. Mom grinned knowingly. "He can be difficult. Be patient, Melanie." "Patient?" I nodded furiously in our new room, trying to look the part of the obedient stepdaughter. Mom patted my head. "He didn't greet you? That's a power move. He won't be easy. Avoid him if you can." "What if I can't?" "Then fight back. And if I win?" "Split the inheritance and run," she said with a wink. Genius. Truly. The second wedding was a spectacle. Mom and I donned evening gowns for the first time, feeling like royalty while someone, some high and mighty stranger, whispered, "Gold diggers." I grinned. "Good day to you, whoever you are." Turns out, the insult came from Brittany, a peacock of a girl, strutting beside a boy who looked exactly like my stepdad. "Yep. That's Ashton." He sauntered over, leaning down with all the sweet insincerity he could muster. "My dearest sister, welcome to hell." Hell, indeed, especially with catering like this. I smiled sugarly. "Thanks, Ashton." The ginger kid behind him muttered something under his breath. "She's got to be dumb." Road. As I walked past, fate, or clumsiness, intervened. My heel stepped squarely on his foot. "Oops," I said too late. "Did you just?" His ginger companion went crimson, eyes flashing. Air pressure dropped. Time for a strategic retreat. The wedding wrapped around 11. Mom and my new dad disappeared into their honeymoon suite, and I reminded her to keep it down. She just laughed. "It's a mansion, soundproof. Relax." Ashton and I retreated to our adjoining rooms, and he gave me a look I was certain could freeze fire. "Just a heads up," Ashton said that night, smirking from his doorway. "Don't sleep too soundly." "Oh, thanks," I muttered, rolling my eyes. It was my first time in a king-size bed, and despite the mountain of blankets and plush pillows, sleep refused to come. Everything in this new life felt strange and too big, too shiny. Then, in the dead of night, something scuttled under my door. I jolted upright, heart hammering, and froze. For beady eyes glared at me. How thoughtful of him. After a frantic chase that left me breathless and slightly embarrassed, I finally caught them. He must have worried I'd be lonely. But turnabout is fair play. I couldn't be rude, could I? By morning, I had a plan. I hit the nearest pet store and bought the most realistic rubber snake I could find. It was so lifelike, I almost hated to part with it. Almost. Carefully, I slipped it into Ashton's backpack. He watched me all morning. "Is it my stunning beauty?" I teased, batting my eyelashes. Are you crazy? He scoffed. I shrugged innocently. Not a cure, I thought. Stepdad seemed pleased with our budding camaraderie. Ashton, he said later, Melanie just transferred to your school. Same class. Take care of her. Ashton's smile didn't reach his eyes. Don't worry. I'll take very good care of her, he said, with a tone that could have belonged to a Disney villain plotting something sinister. I sighed. I was definitely going to have to rewatch The Parent Trap tonight. The mansion even came with a chauffeur. My first limo ride. Everything felt surreal. Halfway there, Ashton decided he'd had enough. Get out, he barked. I blinked, stunned. Then, without thinking, I shoved him out of the seat. His face turned the color of burnt toast as he scrambled upright, and I bolted. The second limo ride, thankfully mine, made me queasy. By the time I reached school, I was clutching a cab receipt like a prized possession. My newly acquired allowance, $17 whole, had never felt so sweet. Burning money in the morning had a certain thrill. I arrived at class first. Brittany and Ginger were already there. Everyone stared. I fumbled. Have a seat, everyone. No need to be so formal, I said, trying to sound casual. Humph. So this was how rich kids greeted each other. Ashton arrived shortly after. He pointed at me, eyes narrowing. I'll remember this. Is that a subtle threat or a dramatic declaration? I glanced at his backpack and my stomach did a little flip. My precious snake was in there. Ashton's eyes flicked to mine. Keep staring and I'll get your eyes out. Kinky. I liked it. Then he opened his backpack and pulled out the snake. Its little forked tongue flicked out. So cute. Ashton's breathing grew shallow, his eyes wider, his lips parting, and then nothing. He fainted. A snake. He fainted from a snake. Help! I shrieked. First day of school, and Ashton was being carted off in an ambulance as I trailed behind as a concerned family member. Mom arrived minutes later, taking in the scene with a grin. She gave me a thumbs up. You're a legend. I shrugged modestly. Just average. Did you? I held up a hand. It's fake. Apparently, the pet store had been low rent. No real snakes, just realistic rubber ones. I guessed rich kids weren't exactly exposed to the real world. Ashton recovered quickly, albeit slightly traumatized. Mom and I sat by his hospital bed. I feel like a wicked stepmother, she sighed. I feel like a wicked stepsister, I admitted. Ashton didn't say a word, but when Mom apologized on my behalf, he muttered it was fine. He even drank the chicken soup she made and thanked her politely. Stepdad beamed at the scene, convinced we were a picture-perfect, happy little family. That night, Mom and I exchanged a look that said the same thing without words. He is planning something. Sure enough, Ashton slipped into my room later, silent as a shadow. He grabbed my throat, his smile a knife, eyes cold enough to make the room feel smaller. My dear sister, he breathed, close enough that I could smell the cigarette he didn't have. How should I punish you? I didn't answer. I moved like a cat, slow and sure, sliding my leg free from beneath the covers. My knee came up hard and fast, aimed with all the quiet practice of a girl who learned early how to protect herself. Bullseye. In the dark, I could almost see his eyes roll back. Ashton collapsed with a groan, folding himself on the floor like a discarded coat. He curled up, groaning, a ridiculous little shrimp in a heap. I stood above him for a long beat, breathing, letting the adrenaline ebb. Playing tough guy, Ashton? I said, voice soft enough not to wake the house. Do you know how dangerous it is to sneak into a girl's room at night? Boys should protect themselves, especially pretty ones. He wheezed and glared, but it felt like a victory. I seized the moment, and with all the drama of a scene I'd been saving, I stormed down the hall, shouting for help. I woke my stepdad, who lurched out of bed more surprised than angry. Ashton, what are you doing in Melanie's room? He asked, blinking. Ashton looked up, stunned, then scrambled to his feet. I gave him a solid kick as he moved, an old reflex, more than malice. He hit the floor again. I hoped I hadn't hurt him too badly, but the point had been made. Mom's face hardened into stone. She checked me over, fingers quick and practiced. Are you okay? She asked. I nodded, but she ignored me and turned on my stepdad, voice low and furious. Either you control your son, or we are done. Don't you dare take this out on my daughter. Her words were a cliff that didn't crumble, and for once, I felt proud to stand beside her. That night, Mom and I shared the king-size bed, an island of warmth, While downstairs I could hear my stepdad yelling at Ashton, a mix of anger and panic that sounded, absurdly, almost soothing. "Good night, sleep tight," I called up through the ceiling, sarcastic and tired. The next morning, I took the limo to school alone, clutching my stomach against the queasiness that fancy cars always gave me. The driver was polite, the leather soft, and my head filled with plans. I had $17 in my pocket, and for once, burning money felt like a small, delicious rebellion. I texted Mom, "Be ready for my call," and she sent back a single eyebrow-raising emoji and the words, "Trouble brewing?" "Would I do that?" I replied with a wink. She patted my head in the photo she sent. "Go get him, kiddo. I've got your back." At school, the atmosphere felt electric. Eyes tracked me as I walked in, slow and heavy, like rain about to fall. Ashton lounged in his chair with a smirk that had grown roots, and my desk had been vandalized, insults smeared across it in careful, hateful handwriting. Mostly they were about my mom, small, vicious things that made my skin prickle. I lifted the chair and flung it across the room. It landed with a metallic clang in front of Brittany, who shrieked like a porcelain figure. "Melanie, are you insane? Who wrote this?" she demanded, outrage theatrical. I kept my voice calm, the kind of calm that came from knowing how to survive. "Who wrote it?" I asked. "You did, apparently." She huffed, offended, as if the world owed her the benefit of the doubt. I had already pegged Brittany as the queen bee, and the boys followed Ashton while the girls followed her, because that was how the spoils were parceled in their little kingdom. I slapped her hard enough that the sound landed between us, a punctuation mark for everything she'd said and done. Brittany's jaw dropped. "Ew. EW, I'm going to kill you," she screamed and lunged. Then the whole room became a tangle. Hair was grabbed, fingers found skin, shoes stomped, nails bitten into arms. Their posse had numbers, but I had street smarts, the kind you get when apartments are thin and kindness is rarer than rent money. We grappled, hair pulling, pinching, stomping, all of it, the messy, human violence of people trying to claim a small victory. "Ow. Ouch. Hey!" Ginger yelled from the sidelines, bewildered. Ashton's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Stop it, all of you." He shoved into the center and hauled us apart, his eyes boring into mine, a look like he wanted to peel me open and see what made me tick. "Melanie, have you had enough?" he asked, teeth clenched. I grabbed my desk, heart pounding, and ran. "Melanie, what are you doing?" he yelled, but I kept going, adrenaline as my engine. Someone told the teacher, someone else called the office, and suddenly we were all walking into the principal's office, a group of ragged, guilty, and furious children. Our trendy principal, who wore a blazer and an expression of someone perpetually on the verge of scandal, stared right at me. "Melanie," she began, voice frosty. "First day of school, you bring a snake. Second day, you start a fight. I've never seen a student so disruptive." I kept my face as blank as I could. "They started it," I said, and pointed to the others because the truth in that room was a simple line that cut clean through the noise. "Call my mom. I'm a minor. I will not answer any questions without a parent present." My voice was small and stubborn, the combination I always used when I wanted everyone to know I meant business. The principal slammed her hand on the desk, affronted. "Fine. I will call your mother. I'd like to hear what she has to say about this." 10 minutes later, Mom arrived, like she had been waiting outside the whole time, cool and casual as if she had only popped in from shopping in the neighborhood. I hugged her, relief slipping into my chest, and she pushed me away with a mock scolding. "You are filthy. Did you fall in a dumpster?" "Mommy," I pouted, and then straightened to point at the other kids. "They were bullying me." Brittany gasped, outrage staged and loud. "Melanie, you liar, you started it." The principal folded her hands, eyebrows crisp. "Mrs. Monroe, Melanie has been nothing but trouble since she transferred. We need to talk." Mom cut her off, calm and fierce. "Did you not hear her? They were bullying my daughter." Ashton appeared in the doorway like he owned the frame, Ginger and Brittany's friends close behind him, rehearsed expressions ready for backup. "Did you fight back?" Brittany demanded. I shrugged, neutral. "So what if I did? You hit me first, I hit back." "Of course you can," I said aloud, palms up, nearly bored by how predictable they all were. "So, what if I started it?" It was mutual. Besides, I kicked the desk. They insulted me first. I defended myself. The principal, determined to be impartial and infuriating, raised her voice. That does not give you the right to resort to violence. Melanie, you need to think about why they targeted you, and not someone else. These are good kids. This has never happened before. Mom, who never did things half-heartedly, let the principal finish, and then, with the quiet authority of someone used to being heard, she slapped the principal clean across the face. The sound was crisp, a punctuation mark that silenced the room. The principal sputtered, stunned and red. Why did you do that? Mom smiled, unruffled. Why did I slap you, and not someone else? Maybe you should think about that. She lifted her phone and took photos of the insults scrawled across my desk, close-ups and angles, proof in pixels. We'll be doing a handwriting analysis. Whoever wrote those slurs will face the consequences, she said, voice level and final. Then she turned to Ashton, gaze cold. If you have a problem, take it up with your dad, not my daughter. If it were me you were picking on, you might at least earn my respect. Ashton's face thundered, the color draining like storm clouds. We left the office with my mom a force of quiet chaos at my side. Before we reached the car, I stuck my tongue out at him, small and childish, and watched his expression darken even more. The handwriting analysis came back 3 days later, and Brittany's perfect penmanship sealed her fate. Suspension for a week, mandatory counseling, and a forced apology that tasted like vinegar in her mouth. She delivered it in the principal's office with Mom, stepdad, and Ashton all present, her voice tight and rehearsed, eyes shooting daggers at me the entire time. I'm sorry for what I wrote, she said through clenched teeth. I smiled sweetly. Apology accepted. Mom squeezed my shoulder, pride radiating from her like heat from pavement. Stepdad looked exhausted, caught between his son's choices and his new wife's fury. Ashton said nothing, just stared at the floor with his jaw working like he was chewing on words too bitter to swallow. On the drive home, the limo felt suffocating. Ashton sat across from me, arms crossed, face unreadable. I pulled out my phone and pretended to be fascinated by absolutely nothing. You know, he said finally, voice low enough that the driver wouldn't hear, you didn't have to go nuclear. I looked up, meeting his eyes. They weren't angry exactly, more like curious, the way someone examines a puzzle they can't quite solve. She insulted my mom, and you got her suspended. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. He laughed, short and sharp, surprising us both. You're crazy. Takes one to know one, mouse boy. His face twitched, almost a smile, before he caught himself and looked away. The rest of the ride passed in silence, but it felt different somehow, less like a ceasefire and more like a brief intermission. That night, I locked my door and barricaded it with a chair, just in case. But Ashton never came. Instead, around midnight, I heard him playing piano in the music room downstairs, something melancholy and beautiful that seeped through the floorboards like smoke. I sat on my bed listening, wondering who this person was beneath all the pranks and power moves. The next morning at breakfast, stepdad cleared his throat, the universal signal for serious family discussion. Mom and I exchanged glances. I think, he began carefully, we all need to establish some ground rules. This house should be a safe place for everyone. Agreed, Mom said, sipping her coffee like she was already 3 steps ahead. Stepdad looked at Ashton. No more sneaking into Melanie's room. Ashton nodded, face neutral. And no more pranks that could send someone to the hospital. I raised my hand like I was in class. Does that include fake snakes? Especially fake snakes. What about real snakes? Ashton asked deadpan. Ashton, stepdad warned. Just clarifying the parameters. Mom set down her coffee cup with a decisive clink. How about this? You two figure out how to coexist, or we make your lives extremely boring until you do. No limo, no allowance, no privileges. You want to act like children. You get treated like children. I opened my mouth to protest, but Mom's look could have frozen lava. Ashton and I glanced at each other, then away, a shared understanding passing between us. Our parents had gone nuclear first. Fine, we said in unison. Good. Stepdad smiled like he'd just negotiated world peace. Now, I expect you both at dinner tonight. We're having guests. Oh no. The guests turned out to be stepdad's business associates and their perfectly pressed children, the kind of people who probably iron their pajamas and had opinions about which fork to use for salad. I spent 2 hours getting ready, Mom helping me into a dress that cost more than our old apartment's monthly rent. You look beautiful, honey, she said, adjusting my necklace. I look like I'm playing dress up. Fake it till you make it. She winked. That's how I got here. Downstairs, the dining room had been transformed into something out of a magazine spread. Crystal glasses, cloth napkins folded into swans, enough silverware to confuse a medieval knight. Ashton was already there in a fitted suit, hair styled back, looking like he'd stepped out of a cologne advertisement. He caught my eye and smirked. "Nice dress, Cinderella." "Nice suit, Prince Charming." "Try not to faint if someone mentions snakes." His jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the doorbell rang, and suddenly we were in performance mode, smiling and shaking hands and pretending we were a normal, functional family. Dinner was torture. The business associates droned on about markets and portfolios while their children sat primly, making polite conversation about colleges and internships. One girl, Victoria, had perfect posture and the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So, Melanie," she said, voice dripping with false sweetness, "Ashton tells me you just transferred. Where did you go to school before?" I felt everyone's attention shift to me, a spotlight I didn't ask for. Mom's hand found mine under the table, squeezing once. "Public school," I said simply.
"Oh."
Victoria's smile sharpened. "How different that must be." Ashton spoke up before I could. "Yeah, Melanie's been adjusting really well. Top marks already." I blinked at him, surprised. He didn't look at me, just casually cut his steak like he hadn't just offended me. "That's wonderful," Victoria's mother chimed in. "Education is so important." The conversation moved on, but I couldn't stop glancing at Ashton, trying to figure out his angle. Was this part of some elaborate long game? Or had something actually shifted? After dinner, the adults retreated to the study for brandy and cigars, leaving us kids in the sitting room. Victoria immediately claimed the spot next to Ashton on the couch, while I perched on the armchair, suddenly exhausted. "Your house is gorgeous," Victoria gushed, touching Ashton's arm. "You must give me a tour sometime." "Maybe," Ashton said, non-committal. "I'd love to see a room." I snorted before I could stop myself. All eyes turned to me. "Something funny?" Victoria asked, voice icy. "Just thinking about the last time someone saw Ashton's room. They found a rubber snake and ended up in the hospital." Ashton's eyes widened slightly. Victoria looked confused. "It's a long story," Ashton said quickly. "One that involves me being brilliant," I added. "You mean reckless." Potato, potato. Victoria looked between us, something calculating in her expression. "You two certainly have an interesting relationship." "We're family," I said, the words still feeling foreign in my mouth. "Step-family," Ashton corrected, but his tone wasn't as sharp as usual. Victoria smiled, but it was a smile of someone who just identified competition.
"Great."
Another enemy to add to the collection. The evening finally ended around 10. As the guests filed out, Victoria made a point of hugging Ashton goodbye, whispering something in his ear that made him laugh. I felt an unexpected twist in my stomach that I refused to examine too closely. When they were gone, I kicked off my heels and collapsed on the couch. Ashton loosened his tie and sat in the armchair I'd abandoned. "That was exhausting," I muttered. "Welcome to my world." "Your world sucks. And yet here you are." I opened one eye to look at him. "Why'd you do that?" "Do what?" "Defend me." To Victoria. He shrugged, suddenly interested in his cufflinks. She was being a snob. "Since when do you care?" "I don't." But his ears were turning red, a tell I filed away for future use. We sat in silence for a moment, the house settling around us. From upstairs, I could hear Mom and Stepdad's muffled laughter, the sound of people who'd found something worth keeping. "Truce," I offered, not quite believing I was saying it. Ashton looked at me, really looked, like he was seeing me for the first time. "Conditional truce." "What are the conditions?" "No more snakes. No more mice. No more hospital visits."
"Deal."
"But if you sneak into my room again, all bets are off." "Wouldn't dream of it," he said, but there was something in his smile that suggested otherwise. I went to bed that night without barricading my door, which felt either brave or stupid. Time would tell which. The conditional truce lasted exactly 4 days before Victoria ruined everything. It started innocently enough. She transferred to our school because apparently the universe thought I didn't have enough problems. Her father had business dealings with stepdad, which meant she was suddenly everywhere. At school, at dinner parties, texting Ashton at all hours. Brittany returned from suspension with a newfound alliance, and together, she and Victoria formed what I called the unholy trinity, though the third member rotated depending on who wanted to be mean that day. Melanie. Victoria cooed during lunch, sliding into the seat next to mine uninvited. That's such a pretty necklace. Costume jewelry. I touched the simple silver chain Mom had given me for my birthday. Gift from my mom. How sweet. Ashton's been telling me all about your family. It must be so hard, adjusting to this lifestyle. Her smile was razor sharp. Across the cafeteria, Ashton was watching us, expression unreadable. Ginger sat next to him, whispering something that made Ashton's jaw tighten. It's fine, I said evenly. Change is good. Of course. Though I have to say, some people just have that nouveau riche energy, you know? She laughed, light and cruel. No offense. Every offense, I thought, but kept my face neutral. None taken. She left eventually, satisfied with whatever psychological warfare she thought she'd accomplished. I picked at my lunch, appetite gone, and considered the various ways I could make her life difficult. But the truce with Ashton had been nice. Peaceful. I didn't want to rock the boat. That afternoon, someone broke into my locker and stole my homework. Not just stole it, they tore it up and left the pieces scattered inside, like confetti. A note was taped to the locker door. Gold diggers deserve nothing. I stood there, staring at the mess, feeling something crack inside my chest. This wasn't just about pranks anymore. This was personal. What happened? I turned. Ashton stood behind me, backpack slung over one shoulder, face serious. Nothing. Melanie. Just someone being stupid. I started gathering the torn papers, hands shaking slightly. He grabbed my wrist, stopping me.
Who did this?
Why do you care? Because. He stopped, frustrated, then pulled out his phone and took pictures of the locker, the note, everything. Because this is harassment, and it's not okay. I stared at him. Who are you, and what did you do with Ashton? I'm serious. This crosses a line. You mean the line you crossed when you put mice in my room? His face flushed. That was different.
How?
Because we're family now. And family fights each other, but we don't let other people do it. Something warm and unexpected bloomed in my chest. I quickly squashed it. That's the worst pep talk I've ever heard. I'm trying here. Try harder. He smiled despite himself. Come on. We're going to the principal. Are you kidding? She hates me. Then it's a good thing my dad donates to the school. He grabbed my hand, and before I could protest, we were walking down the hallway together, an unlikely team with matching determination. The principal was less than thrilled to see us, but Ashton's evidence was damning. Security footage showed Victoria entering the hallway during free period, and when they checked her locker, they found the missing homework. Intact, not the torn version in mine, proving premeditation. Victoria was suspended. Brittany, caught on camera as an accessory, got detention for a month. And I got an apology from the principal herself, stiff and awkward but genuine. Walking out of the office, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Thank you, I said quietly. Ashton shrugged, but I could see the pleased expression he was trying to hide. Don't get used to it. Wouldn't dream of it. That night at dinner, stepdad noticed the shift between us. You two seem to be getting along better. We've reached an understanding, Ashton said. He's slightly less annoying than before, I added. Mom laughed, the sound bright and full. That's the nicest thing you've said about each other. Under the table, Ashton kicked my foot lightly. I kicked back, but it felt more like a game than a fight. When I looked up, he was almost smiling, and for the first time since moving into this mansion, I thought maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. Later, I heard the piano again, but this time the melody was lighter, something hopeful drifting through the house like a promise. I fell asleep listening to it, door unlocked, chair still against the wall but somehow unnecessary. In the morning, I found a note slipped under my door. Truce officially upgraded to alliance. Don't make me regret this. I smiled, tucked it into my desk drawer, and got ready for school. The war wasn't over, but at least now we were fighting on the same side.